Hi, I'm Zach Childs, and welcome to the Truetone Lounge. Today's guest is Kenny Greenberg. Kenny Greenberg made his impact on the Nashville studio scene by having a rock-influenced tone and playing that helped him, cement his own place here in Nashville. He is the musical director and producer of the Skyville live show. He's been touring arenas and stadiums with Kenny Chesney. You can also catch him playing with his singer-songwriter wife, Ashley Cleveland, and you can sometimes catch him around playing with Pat McLaughlin. So happy to have you on the show today, and thank you for letting us be in your home today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
tell us how did you start playing the guitar?
I started playing as a kid, and I actually studied classical music as a kid. I played trombone and cello, and not very well, but I played it, and in school band and orchestra, and then I gravitated towards the guitar, and actually quit school when I was 19, and moved down to Nashville. Started playing guitar.
Now,
Yeah.
being more of a rock player, what made you want to move to Nashville?
I'm from Cleveland, but I was living. I went to high school in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was just banging around there. After when I got out of school, and I met a drummer that played in a country band out of Nashville. He said, "You got to come to Nashville. It's so close. There's so many cool things happening." And he was getting ready to go on a national tour, and his wife was 6 months pregnant. So me and my best friend Jeff, that played bass, he said, "If you guys will stay at my house, so someone is there to be with my pregnant wife, so she's safe. She's not there by herself. I'll give you a free place to live." So we moved down here. And just kind of got into the club scene, and just banging around playing in bands. And there was a really cool scene here. It was really fun.
Yeah, what year was this?
1978.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because the kind of rock scene in Nashville didn't.
There
really
was no rock scene
but
in there.
it-
There wasn't
well,
any scene in
yeah,
Nashville.
But it kind of started to take off later with like Jason and the Scorchers and Webb Wilder and some other things in the mid '80s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually moved down here and got into a blues band like right away. It's really weird, because I was into the outlaw thing that was going on
Yeah.
in the early Waylon records and Paycheck, and I actually got to be friends with Paycheck. We would hang out and stay out all night and see things that I'd never seen before. But I was in this blues band, and we were a popular band playing around town, and we toured around and on the college circuit and stuff, and we got to be really good friends with Jason and the Scorchers and some of those bands. Actually, Warner Hodges, the guitar player for the Scorchers, was a big influence on me. I learned a lot about like rock and roll, guitar playing, and also how to be on stage from Warner, who's like the ultimate showman. He's a great guy.
He knows how to stand up there and deliver.
Oh, when the Scorchers they were poised to be the next big national band, and they had a major record deal, and they were with REM on tour, and so it was lots of fun being around. I got some great Scorchers story, probably not appropriate for
the kids,
but they were awesome.
Yeah. So this blues band, did that morph into the King Snakes?
No, I was just playing in this blues band, and the guy is called the Bobby Bradford Blues Band.
Okay.
And this guy, Bobby Bradford, actually owned a bar out on the Cumberland River, this really funky biker bar. And me and my buddy Jeff lived in the back of it. We'd tend bar for all the guys working on the barges during the day, and then we'd play in the band at night. But he also did singer-songwriter things, and so songwriters, like on a Tuesday night, songwriters would come out and play their songs. There'd be 3 or 4 songwriters. So I would meet them, and maybe I would get up and play with them. And I was like 20, 21 at the time. So I'd get up and play with them, and then they would say, "Hey, I'm going to go in and cut a demo of my songs. You want to come play on it?" So it was a way to meet people making music in Nashville.
Yeah.
But it was kind of more, not really the mainstream country thing, more the kind of left to center underground scene, which was starting to develop. And so I was very involved in that. So the way I got into doing studio work was this little band I was in. I would meet these songwriters, play on their demos, and then you meet someone else that's at the studio, and they say, hey, he works cheap. Let's get him to, come play on our demo. And then one of those songwriters would get a record deal, and someone would like a part you played on their demo, and say, hey, let's get the guy that played on the demo to play on the record. And next thing you know, you're playing on a record. But I mean, it takes a number of years. It's not like it instantaneously happened.
Yeah.
I was banging around playing in local bands, but it was awesome. It was great.
So you moved to town in '78, and then was Tear Stained Letter the first number one or the first hit
It's
record?
the first number one record I played on.
Yeah.
And there was a guy named Richard Bennett.
Yes.
A very, highly regarded guitar player. And when I first started to get into more of the studio scene, I ended up playing with him some, and he was a big influence on my playing, especially playing a Gretsch and playing those kind of Gretsch big body guitar parts. And he was producing Emmylou and a number of people at that time. So he was producing this guy Joel Saunier. I can't remember how. Somehow I ended up playing on that record, and but it was really Richard coaching me through the parts, helping me get my guitar sound, and a lot of times I actually played through his rig. So so I played on Joel Saunier, who had a record deal on RCA, and I played on his showcase and played on his record, and so that song Tear Stained Letter was a number one, and it was really, the credit goes to Richard Bennett, because he actually sat there and coached me through how to play the parts, and he sort of guided me. It's got a couple of big long solos in it.
Yeah.
He sort of guided me through how to do it, and it was an incredible experience for me.
Yeah.
And I owe a lot to him for that.
That was what a valuable lesson, and what an investment in you for Richard to take the time to coach you through that, instead of him just playing it himself.
He could have played it in 5 minutes himself, so he's very gracious about that, and he's that kind of guy. And actually the first demo I played on for my wife, long before we were a couple, I just kind of knew her, Richard was the main guitar player. I think that's how we met. Maybe that's how we met. I'm not sure. But anyways, I played on my wife's demos, and Richard was there. It's like, wow, Richard Bennett is here. This is amazing, and he played all these just incredible parts, and I was just sitting there soaking it up, trying to imitate what he was doing.
Yeah. What were some of the things that Richard showed you when he was coaching you through, being on this first, major session that you were on?
He had this great way of playing, the whole way of using a wang bar. I've got a Gretsch over there, but I'll just do it on here, this really smooth way of playing. And he had this other really great thing that I learned about playing rhythm guitar. He was an incredible rhythm player. So he would do this thing on an acoustic when he would play rhythm. Instead of just going, or so, he would go. And he had this swing. Swing when he played, and there was the way you moved your hand, there was a swing to it, go like, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it's sort of, to me, playing Texas blues, I'm not from Texas, and I'm just a fan of Texas blues. It's not dissimilar from Stevie Ray going. Same kind of, hand movement. It's a way to play rhythm and get and swing and not play, which isn't bad, but it's stiffer, you know.
Yeah.
You can really swing when you're playing, and I learned that from Richard.
Yeah. So you had mentioned your wife, Ashley Cleveland, earlier. So tell us how you met Ashley.
We were just sort of in the same friend group of musicians and writers, you know, and that would be like Gary Nicholson, you know, that produced Delbert McClinton, but he was a writer and wrote a bunch of hits, and Wally Wilson and Pam Tillis. And there was just this group of people that were all coming up together. And we were kind of more the left of center. We weren't really, by any stretch of the imagination, in the country mainstream. And, you know, we would all play on each other's gigs and hang out together and go to each other's gigs. And Ashley was in that scene, and it was fascinating to me because she was like, and we were friends for years and years before we were together as a couple. We were just buds, and she would play gigs, and she sort of, back in the day, you know, she'd show up and she would dress like a school teacher. She was really square the way she dressed, and she's probably upstairs. I think she'd kill me, but she sang like Etta James or Janis Joplin or something. Yeah. So it's like, who is this weird person that sings like that and looks like that? And we all loved her. She was just great, and a great spirit, and it was writing great songs. And so I ended up playing in her band. I played in her band for, gosh, 3 years. And I'd known her before that. So I played in her band, and then we kind of slowly became a couple.
And your studio career now, after playing on a number one, did it just blow up, or did it still took some time?
No, it didn't really blow up. I don't think anything's ever really blown up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I just slowly assimilated into recording, and you know, it's a tricky thing. It's hard to it's hard to define. It just, these things, just little things happen along the way. There wasn't one pivotal moment. I mean, playing on a hit record certainly helped.
Yeah.
But and I was never really into being a full-time studio guy, because I always wanted to produce records and play in bands and write songs. So I was always kind of bound, which I still do. That's really what I do. I mean, I guess in some ways I'm known as a studio guy, but I don't do sessions every day. I do sessions a lot, but I'm producing a couple records right now. I'm producing Josh Turner right now.
Right.
And I'm writing songs, and then I tour. So I really like to bounce around and do different things. So just things slowly, I found my niche. There were certain people that would call me, go, okay, we want something that's, not, if you want Brent Mason, you don't want me. You know, he's amazing. And the stuff he does, I'm just not, I can get close to that if I need, I can have that in my toolbox. Yeah. But, if you want that, you should call Brent Mason or James Mitchell or JT Cornfloss. I sort of bring a slightly different thing to the studio.
How would you describe your slightly different thing?
It's hard to describe yourself. I mean, really, what are you supposed to say? So it's like, I think the way I play is, I'm not like a technical perfectionist, and I don't have big, fast chops, but in recording sessions, I have really good ideas for parts, and I'm a really good rhythm player. And my sounds are always a little left to center. I think that's, through the years, I think that's what I bring to the table. Yeah. That's kind of what I do, And I've tried really hard to be the technical perfectionist or to have a lot of chops. I've tried to do that, and it just sort of never really works. I just end up doing, kind of fumbling around, and some things happen, really.
To hit on what you said earlier about the different roles that you play, it's interesting seeing that you got into production pretty early on, and also into songwriting.
Yeah.
And you had you were one of the writers on Amy Grant's House of Love, and some other hits, and you were producing Joan Baez
Joan Baez. She was just in town the other day. Joan Baez.
And then of course Josh Turner and. So is that part of just your keeping your livelihood, or is that kind of part of kind of scratching an itch by playing all these different roles?
I think it's a combination of keeping a livelihood, and also it's just kind of what I gravitate towards. I get juice from doing different things.
Yeah.
I bounce around. I mean, I have huge admiration for Derek Wells and Rob McNally and Danny Rader, and they're doing sessions every day, and they're incredible. Where I'll do a couple days and then I'll have a day or two of producing something, or I'm here doing vocals on somebody, and so I'm not even playing,
Yeah.
and so, or we're working on the TV show, and like now we're in post on a TV show for Sony for a Christmas special. So when we leave here, I'm going to spend the rest of the day editing parts, for the TV show. So it's kind of, but then I've got a session at 6 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
So I kind of bounce around, and I get juice from each of the things I do, and it keeps me fresh. I'm not so sure I would be great at doing 3 sessions a day every day. I think that's probably somebody else's job.
Yeah. Probably
honestly.
could lead to burnout too.
Yeah,
Depending on how,
it's partially burnout, but I just don't think I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I'm just not. I'm not really wired that way to want to do that.
When you're producing an album, do you play a lot on it, or do you?
In general, I play a good bit. We just made this. Speaking of Josh Turner, we just made like a bluegrass gospel record. It's something he's always wanted to do. It actually comes out in a few weeks, and we just finished it. I mean, they're throwing it right out there, and I did not play much on that. I got really great bluegrass players, and we did a lot of acoustic stuff, and I played some on it, but I didn't play that much because it was appropriate to have. I had this guy named Carl Miner, who's a great acoustic guitar player, soloist, comes from the bluegrass world. He was playing most of the guitar on it because he should be playing most of the guitar on it.
Yeah.
But I played some. I had a few licks in there.
Is it hard to produce and play at the same time?
I actually like it.
Okay.
I was just working with Matt Rawlings on Monday on a project he's doing. Matt Rawlings is one of the world's great piano players.
Yeah.
And he did not hardly play the whole day. And I work with him a lot. So anytime he's producing, he just will not hardly play. And we all want to play with him because he's, Matt, come play with us. But his vibe is that when he's producing on the tracking thing, he wants to step back and have objectivity and not play. Where I like to have the phones on and be in the room with the guys and playing, because that's how I'm used to hearing things.
So how much help did Tony Brown give you in getting into the session scene?
Pretty helpful. Pretty helpful. I mean, Tony Brown. He was for a long time. He was the king of Nashville. And I made some demos with a singer-songwriter named Allison Moore, and Tony signed her. We did a showcase, he signed her, and Tony goes, "You make the record." It's like, so the next thing I know, I was making a country record. And then I played a good bit on that record, and we wrote a song called "Bring Me All Your Lovin'," and Trisha Yearwood cut that. And so Tony said, "Man, why don't you come play on it?" So I was playing on a Trisha Yearwood session. And actually that opened the door for me to playing on some country records.
Yeah.
So I played on that, and then Tony recommended me for some other things, and I worked for Tony as well. It was great. He's great.
Yeah. And so that kind of opened up a little bit more of the mainstream Nashville session.
Yeah.
And
at that time, the music was really changing, where, the sort of early 90s, the Alan Jackson, Chattahoochee kind of a thing and the Garth Brooks thing was kind of going away, and there was more of a pop and rock element to it. And so that's when I think guys like me and Tom Bukovac and, that would play more humbucker guitars, even though I'm playing a single coil right now, we play humbuckers a lot, And I think that kind of changed things, It's a different sound.
then how did you start working with Kenny Chesney?
I produced a record for MCA on an artist named Shelley Fairchild, and they wanted to team me up with someone more schooled in the country idiom. So I co-produced it with Buddy Cannon, and I'd never met him.
Yeah.
So this is the end of 2000, sometime in 2003. So we produced a record together. We became friends. We had a good time. And he said, why don't you come in and play on Kenny Chesney's record? So in the fall of 2003, which like exactly 15 years ago, I went over to Studio 6 and overdubbed on some of his stuff, and we hit it off. And then I tracked on his next project, and I guess I've been playing on his records ever since. So, but through Buddy Cannon, actually through producing a record is how I met Kenny.
And then how did you end up touring with him?
I ended up touring with him because he knew that I played live because I had just done some Bob Seger dates, and one of his guys, he's very loyal to his band. He's had the same band since he started, and one of his guys in the band wanted to go off and be a solo artist, and this guy Nick. So Nick was leaving the band, and so Chesney calls and said, "Hey man, Nick is leaving. You want to come out this summer?" And I said, "Sure." And I'd never seen him play live,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand the thing he has live. So I went and we rehearsed, and I went out the first couple tour dates, and it's like the amount of people that go to see him, and the connection he has with his fans is an unusual thing. It's a very unusual thing, and it was great, but it was really surprising to me. I just didn't get it, and I went out there and go like, holy shit, there's a lot, there's a lot of people that know every word, and it was fun.
Yeah. So you didn't get it beforehand, but once you saw him live and you saw his live,
Yeah, it's kind of a
the
different
charisma,
thing than his records. And the thing about his gig is he likes to work on the weekends and not so much during the week. So that works for me. I can, even when he's actually out on a tour, Sunday you're back, and then you're leaving Thursday or Friday to go back out.
Right.
And but it's like all spring and all summer, every single weekend you're out. So you give up your weekends, but it's really fun.
So how many dates do you normally do a year?
Well, last year he did like 50 some.
Yeah.
But then next year he's just going to do a few dates, like 20 dates or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and it's an interesting, and then the other interesting thing about it is you see, because on a Saturday blowout stadium dates, there's like 4 bands. It's not always the same bands. So I see all these artists and their bands and see what people are doing, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So
what are you learning from that? You said fascinating.
Kind of a combination of a lot of things you don't want to do.
Because I heard a little hint.
Yeah. And then there's some really great stuff. You see some young bands that are incredible, and you go like, wow. And you see some players that you go like, wow. Like Little Big Town has a really great band, and their drummer and the guy who actually in Little Big Town plays keys, Chester Thompson's son,
Yes, a keel.
Yeah, it was amazing. So on the last Skyville show, this Christmas special that we just did, from seeing them play, I had Hubert and Akil in the band. They're just fantastic players.
Wow.
You know, so you go out and you see people and go like, wow, I didn't know who these people are, but they sure are great. You know, so it's neat.
I guess you enjoy the going between the studio stuff and the live stuff, getting
Yeah.
the feedback of a live audience.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, who wouldn't like it?
Yeah.
You know, it's great. Play for a lot of people, and I mean, you know, but it's not about playing for a lot of people. That sounds dumb. It's like when we play with Pat McLaughlin at Douglas Corner.
Yeah.
It's the best, and there's 100 people, 150 people. It's incredible. He's incredible. So I play acoustic gigs with my wife, like at a homeless shelter, and it's a fantastic experience. So it's really, it's people say like, what's the coolest place you've ever played? It's not the place, it's the people. It's the people you're playing with. Like you're playing with these amazing people. There might be 20, like I'm playing with Jimmy Hall at Douglas Corner tomorrow night, on a Wednesday night. Well, there going to be 30 people there, at best, but it'll be great because he's great.
Yeah.
And the band's great. You just go play to play, I've slowly learned that.
Play for the enjoyment of it.
You play because, it makes you feel good.
Yeah. I've seen you play with Pat McLaughlin and I've seen you play with your wife Ashley, and the Pat McLaughlin gigs are fun to get to see. Pat, who's a great singer songwriter, and then have Greg Morrow on drums and
they're amazing.
Michael Rhodes on bass.
Yeah.
And
Michael Rhodes, a lot of the music, I learned how to play music being around Michael Rhodes. Actually, Michael Rhodes and Glenn Worf, those two people are probably some of my biggest influences. They're bass players,
right.
but I just learned how to play in time and play music, playing a zillion club gigs with those guys.
Yeah. So
great musicians. Yeah.
What was it about playing with them?
Well, they have such great time, and they're both very lyrical players. And I don't know. I'm just around them, and I'm just soaking it up. And, Michael Rhodes is Michael Rhodes, He's amazing, So you play a lot of gigs with him, and you start to pick up on the musicality and the things that he does. And Glenn and I had a band together for a long time. And so we were in the trenches. We were in the trenches together, no doubt.
Let's talk about some important playing concepts. So what would be an important playing concept that you've learned through the years?
I think the thing that I'm constantly working on is rhythm and finding the rhythm of things, and I think that applies to producing and vocals and, just everything. I think the rhythm of things is really what I gravitate towards. And also in playing rhythm, not just, you can, this will be a really kind of basic example, but like, you can have a song that's just eighth notes, But, you can maybe start the song like that, but then maybe you can mix it up and find a way to play rhythm. You could play. Rather than just going dun 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 dun, you can mix it up and find ways to find interesting parts inside the rhythm of the song. And I'm a big Grateful Dead fan, and I love the way Bob Weir plays rhythm guitar, because he kind of moves, and in these, especially to me it's like between 67 and 77 is the era. You just hear him kind of move through the changes of the song, and I like to do that when it's appropriate. Sometimes it's best to just bang out the eights, but yeah.
So was that earlier playing, was that some of the Bob Weir style playing, or could you show us some of that style of rhythm playing?
I mean, I think I kind of just did. I
Okay,
mean,
okay.
it's like he would play, if there's a, and this will once again just be a real basic. If there's a song those, you could just do that. You can sort of move
Yeah.
around, and I mean, I love that,
Yeah.
But you have to also know in recording, when to shut it down. It might be if there's another guitar. And the other thing I've learned is how to work with other players, And so you would have to be aware that if there was another guy playing, if he was playing, it would probably be appropriate for me to just go, just to kind of stay out of the way.
Yeah.
So it's music, and you're playing music with other people, and you're doing the appropriate things, and you're not fighting your way against somebody. But I love the thing of finding little things that kind of move around. On the records that I like, there's usually some of that stuff going on, and it's usually not perfectly executed. So I'm thankful in this era that people like that.
Could you talk a little bit more about the challenges of working with another guitar player in the studio?
Most of the guys that you work with, I mean, everybody in Nashville that's doing sessions, they're all amazing. They're all great. You guys have interviewed all the guys. They're all amazing players. So there's a real joy in working with another player and finding your space. And it changes song by song. One song, I might have the lick or take off, and the other guy lays back. Just kind of finding. And the other great thing I find about playing with other guitar players, I mean, almost without exception, by the end of the session or the gig, I will have learned something that I didn't know before. There's always something new that you watch somebody play and you go like, that was amazing, or how did you do that, Or they'll make some kind of a sound and you go like, God, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. And so that's the joy, you learn from them. And there's a great joy if you can find a good thing playing with somebody. The interplay is it's very rewarding.
So Kenny, you'd mentioned on these sessions where you would pick up something from another player. Can you give us an example of that?
I have to think about who it was, but somebody was doing a great lo-fi rhythm trick, and I loved it. So if you can hear my guitar turned off through the thing, if it was like a song that had, it had a lick like that, and it was like. I just love that. I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, Red Hot. But we played rhythmically, and you just kind of use the delay, but with a real kind of messed up sound. I think it was more like that, where that sounds interesting to me as opposed to
it's kind of an eighth note, and it's kind of giving you the upbeat.
It's an eighth note, and it's more of a distorted sound, and because my guitar sound is really not that distorted, so I like that.
Let's talk a little bit about gear for a bit. Tell us a bit about this Strat style guitar.
This is a Russ Paul Junior. He calls him an RP Junior. It's a Russ Paul guitar, and it's just a Stratocaster from parts, but he puts it together and he winds his own pickups. and they sound great. A lot of people have his Telecasters and Stratocasters. They sound great. They just play great and they sound great. And I mean, I've got a really great old Strat, and I kind of end up playing this. It's just great. It's a great instrument.
And what about it, makes you want to play it?
It just plays like butter. I mean, it's just the smoothest, The pickups just sound, turn it down a little bit. The bars set up great. I mean, they're just, and a lot of times on Stratocasters, the treble pickup is too trebly, and his just sound. I mean, it plays great. It just does everything that I want it to do. So it's just a really, really, it's a very well-made instrument. And I like that. And the other thing I recently got, I got the Ed O'Brien Fender Strat with the sustainer in it.
Yeah.
That's a really good guitar too.
Yeah. So does this have some type of modified nut on there?
Yeah, he did that. It's because a lot of times on Fender guitars, or just on guitars in general,
Yeah.
the G or the B, it ends up being a little sharp down here.
Yeah.
So he put that in there, and it just plays in tune really good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Fantastic.
he did it. I don't know. I got it back. I started playing it and going like, I love this.
Tell us about some of your main amplifiers that you use a lot in the studio.
I use a matchless a lot, which is right there.
Yeah.
And then I use Fenders a lot. And I have a really nice Deluxe, which is what I'm playing through right now. And I use Tweed Deluxes a lot. And actually, one of the things I like is a matchless and a Tweed Deluxe together is a really good sound for me.
Yeah.
I like that. And then I have an old 69 Super Lead right there. That's a really good sounding amp. So I just have, just the basic food groups, and there's a really good AC30 that's right behind the cameraman.
Yeah.
That's good, So
You'd mentioned combining amps. I guess the matchless with a little bit more of its high end and
more
mid-range.
chimey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It complements the
complements
Tweed Deluxe.
The Tweed Deluxe, which is real mid-rangey.
Yeah.
So the combination of those two to me is a really good, and then I have a B. I like to play a B bender a lot. I got a B bender right there, and and a Gretsch. Kind of your basic, your just basic stuff. I like having a Gretsch. I like having a humbucker guitar, and that SG is the one I use live a lot. But I really like playing a B bender, so I've got my B bender telly there.
That seems like an unusual thing for more of a rock oriented player, because the B bender seems to be more of a country guy thing.
Well, I mean, I could demonstrate for you a little bit what I like about it. If you want. Let me just do that. I sort of have a different way of doing the B bender because I don't do the hot licks fast thing on the B bender. The Clarence White. I mean, he was the guy that started it, and Marty Stewart has carried that tradition on, and they're both amazing. And but Jimmy Page also played one, so I'm sort of more. I play it more on ballads, really. If you have like. It just, I mean, it's self-explanatory. It sounds great. Or for a minor thing. I mean, it's just a great sounding thing. So I do just more kind of slow, kind of hippie steel, I mean, who wouldn't like that? It sounds so cool, you know? So yeah, so that's kind of my thing is I
Yeah.
find like on ballads, and even if there is a steel player playing, I even still like to do, we sort of bounce off of each other. And so that's, and it's very basic stuff that I play on. It's really more looking for a note inside of a chord, you know? Just looking for little notes inside the chord that you can bend, or at the end of a phrase, you know. It just, I love that sound.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about this SG?
This is a 62 custom shop, and I got it in 2003 or 2004, and I use this a lot on the road. It sounds great. Cleans up nice. Bend the neck. Pete Townsend style. And I've just used it a lot. It's just a great guitar.
Yeah, is this stock? Have you changed the pickups out or anything crazy like that?
Completely stock.
Yeah.
Completely,
Right.
totally stock. Yeah.
And that was a great tone you had there, which kind of leads us into pedal board talk. What was the overdrive that you had on there?
That is this weird pedal that I actually got from Bob, and I don't even know what it's called. It doesn't. It's a prototype, and it's a kind of a fuzzy distortion, but it cleans up good, and it has a really nice bottom end. With distortion pedals, sometimes your bottom end goes away, but this, you know. On your bottom end.
Yeah, that's one of our old custom shop overdrives that we made when we were still under the Visual Sound name.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
and,
good. Yeah.
Okay, well, tell us about the rest of the stuff that you've got on your board there.
Yeah, it's I always have some type of a line 6, like the M9 or a M5. I have a couple different boards, but this is the one that stays in my studio, and it's like a Swiss Army knife. There's good delays. There's a good vibrato in there. There's a really good wah in there you use with the controller, so I use that. And then I have an old blues driver and a good fuzz. And I really like the rocket pedals, the thing that's next to the Octafuzz.
Or the Archer?
Yeah, which is like a Klon clone. And I've got an old Klon on my main studio board, and that gets pretty close to it. Yeah. So it really colors the tone, which sometimes you want, you know. And then I've got a couple of good delays, and I've got this delay over here, which is really good. And then this does a whole bunch of stuff. But the other good thing to know is that this. This to me is the best Leslie simulator, but it's really noisy and really big, so I have it in a loop. But I just love it. It just sounds right to me. So this is what, and I don't use it live because it's too big and it has to be in a loop. But man, it's like to me the best, you know. It's just all right there for me. So I use that a lot. And then I've got a couple analog pedals that are really great that I use for fuzz tones. And that guy named Andy Harrison makes that reveal pedal that's there. That's really great clean boost. And he makes a really good distortion box too. And yeah, just kind of the basic, just all the basic stuff, you know. I think that, oh, and I also use of course, we're here at the Truetone. I use their power supplies. Everybody uses their power supplies. They're just the best power supplies.
Thanks.
And so you don't see it, but it's on all my stuff. You know,
Yeah.
they're really good and they're really quiet. And I know it's kind of become the standard. You know, is we really like those a lot. I mean, I've got a lot of pedals here because this is kind of a lab where I do overdubs for people. I want to quickly get a lot of different sounds, and it's fun. I have a lot of different stuff set up,
Yeah.
but I find that going to gigs and if I'm going to a session and just carrying a few things in my car, I find myself taking less and less,
Okay.
and really just being more about the guitar and the amp, you know, and less about, like I know through my Tweed Deluxe and like this guitar or a Strat, you know, and maybe one overdrive, you know, in a reverb, I can kind of do everything that I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Earlier when we were setting up, you were talking about how things kind of revolve around, how, you know, you will use something for a while and you'll get tired of it, and then you might come back to it. Whether
Yeah,
it's-
yeah. I think that's really true with guitars. Is that I mean I've been playing for a while now, and it's like I have some guitars that I don't use for a while, and then I'll circle back to them and go like, wow, I forgot how great this is. Or it was good to get away from that because something else gave me inspiration. I think different guitars, for me personally, give me more inspiration than pedals do. You know, I think having like I have these Yamaha hollow bodies that you asked me about. I haven't been using those for a while, and but I may circle back and start playing those and go like, I forgot how great this is. Wow, now I'm inspired to play a way that I wasn't playing before, have a slightly different sound that's going to inspire me to do new things. And I think that that's a legit way to be, but it is also every bit as legit to be, this is my guitar that I've used all these years, this is my amp, this is my thing, and I don't want to do anything else. There's guys like that. Like JT Cornfloss plays this blue telly that's what he plays. And he's amazing. But I mean, he has other guitars that he brings, but that's kind of what he always plays. And that's a totally legit way to be, you know?
Yeah.
I just might not be exactly that way.
Circling back around, you know, your board today, you kind of put it together, but a lot of your boards, Exact Tone Solutions put together. And
They do all my stuff, my stuff.
We want to give them
Oh,
props.
they're the best, yeah.
Barry and Greg for all the great builds that they have, and also for using our power supply on many of the builds.
I think they've turned, because so many players, you know, they work on their boards that I think you can really directly attribute, you know, part of the success of the power supplies to Exactone, because everybody uses their stuff and that's what they use. Yeah. So I mean, my stuff is quieter than it's ever been. You know, it's like I was playing earlier. I was playing single coil pickups and it wasn't very noisy, right? Yeah, it's really, that's because they got the good power supply thing going on.
Your wife has had a documentary come out.
Yeah.
On her.
Yeah.
I guess you'll be playing some shows with her and maybe doing some promotion for that.
Yeah.
You've got the show coming up with Jimmy Hall.
Yeah.
I guess you'll be hitting the road next year again with Kenny Chesney.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
What else you got coming up?
I'm producing a couple records. I got a couple records coming up, and excited about that. I'm doing a couple things for BMG, and the rest of my year is, you know, pretty full. You know, it's pretty good. It's good to be doing stuff.
Yeah, and Skyville. People need to make sure and catch Skyville, where you're the musical director and producer of the show. You've had some amazing guests. You've gotten to play with Billy Gibbons.
Yeah, we did a Billy Gibbons show. That was really. Here's the thing about Billy Gibbons is that he, you know, everybody knows this thing. He uses sevens on his guitar. He's actually playing an SG, so he uses sevens on his guitar, like these super light strings, and he has a Magnatone amp, which actually I have a Magnatone amp, and they're great amps. He has the master volume, I mean, almost completely off, and the gain is all the way up. So he has this super distorted sound, but it's very low volume, which you would think, there's a guy that's going to be blasting his way. Super low volume player, sounds amazing.
Wow.
Very smart thing to do.
Yeah. You've also had Greg Allman on the show and Chris Christopherson. You've gotten to play with some amazing artists.
Yeah, we have Greg Allman's last videotaped performance, so we're excited about that. That was good.
Yeah. Well, Kenny, I really appreciate you letting us come into your home and letting us, interview you. And thank you so much for being on the show.
You got it. Yeah, I played on 7-Year Itch with Etta James's record with Reggie Young.
Yeah. You learned much from Reggie?
It was a mind-blowing experience.
Yeah.
I played on in the Barry Beckett era, I played on about 5 or 6 records in a row with Reggie.
Yeah.
It was like, holy shit, man, he's amazing. Probably the best, greatest session player of all time. But you get in a room with him and you realize just how great he is. His touch, his finesse, his intonation, and it's never any kind of big fancy anything. It's just you just hear it back and go like, wow, yeah, that was an amazing experience for me. Actually, I was trying to get to play some solos on the Etta James record, and they wouldn't let me play any solos on it. I said, well, we're ready to, Reggie's coming in. It's like, oh, okay, Reggie's coming in, And then when I got the record and listened to it, I went like, I get it. Yeah, this is why. This is why he's Reggie Young.
Thanks for watching the Truetone Lounge. Make sure and subscribe so you never miss an episode.